Yeah, so please do ask questions as we go along because obviously I want to make sure this content is really useful for you and it's just not me sort of spouting off a load of theory, but it's actually stuff that you can take back to your business and apply and hopefully make a difference. So just ask a question, and like Vicky said, she'll let me know there's a question, then we can answer that. I'm really happy to go off piste if that's where sort of energy takes us. So let me start by sharing my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. Can someone just confirm? Oh yeah, great. Thanks, Vicky. That's it. Got it. Thanks. So yeah, so my name's Rob Costa, as Vicky said, and in the next hour, I want to talk to you all about positioning, marketing, and sales. Now, I know that it's tough out there at the moment. So as I said, I want to make sure this is a super pragmatic session that will give you practical ideas that can impact your sales and marketing activities. Now, although I predominantly work with service-based businesses, i.e. companies that are selling their time, what we're going to talk about today will apply to any type of business. So if you're not a service-based business, it really doesn't matter, even if I use those as examples. So let me just tell you, first of all, what we're going to cover today. So we are going to start off by talking about why your business having a very clear niche will help you win more business. And this is the crux to a lot of successful sales and marketing. Once we've done that, we're going to talk about the importance of alignment across 4 key areas in your business, which I'll explain more about later. And we're going to then talk about identifying who your ideal target customer is and knowing them really intimately well so that you can create sales and marketing messages that really hit home with that audience. And we'll talk about the sales funnel. You may be familiar with that, but if you are, I'll just kind of remind you of it. If you're not, I'll go through it. And I want to talk about why so many businesses miss out the middle part of the sales funnel. They're good at the top and the bottom, but they're not good in the middle. And I'll explain what I mean by that. And then once we've done that, we'll talk about some sales and marketing tactics that you can use and how to work out the best approaches for you. And finally, we're going to talk about how to nurture your leads once they've come into your world and how to convert them into customers and loyal fans in the end. And we will have hopefully some time at the end for Q&A, but as we've said, if you've got questions as we go along, please do ask them. So I appreciate that some of you might know me, but a lot of people probably don't know me. So just really quick 2 minutes on who I am. So I started, grew and sold my own full service marketing agency back in the early 90s. I sold the business in 2002, retrained to become a coach. And in the past 14 years, I've worked with 250 businesses to help them become more profitable, to train and develop their staff, perhaps most importantly, to do it by enjoying the journey, not just focusing on the destination. And I do this by one-to-one coaching and also by a group coaching program. Now, what got me to this point, just a quick timeline. And I think it's worth sharing this because it kind of gives you a bit of perspective, and I just want to talk about recessions as well. So I started my business in 1992. In 2000, we were named the fastest growing agency outside of London by PR Week, which is the kind of trade magazine for the PR world. I sold the business in 2002, did a 3-year earn out. In 2005, I left to become a coach, and then I started the Costa coaching, the current business I run, in 2007. And by 2018, I'd worked with 250 businesses. And then last year, I launched my online group coaching program, which was very fortuitous given what was going to happen the next year. Now, the interesting thing about that is that in 1992, if any of you are old enough and can remember that far back, we were right in the middle of a recession. It was when the Iraq War was going on, and it was a difficult time. And that's when I started my business. And then in 2007, we were right smack bang in the financial crisis. And that's when I started my coaching practice. So I have always believed that when times are tough like they are now, there's still business to be had. We just have to work smart and work hard to go and find those clients. And that's kind of what I want to dig into today, so that you can, be successful and leave with some new ideas that you can implement into your business. So let's just start off by talking about niching. And before I jump into talk about how you go about niching your business. If you're not niche at the moment, I just want to talk about why it's so important to have a really clear niche. And the first point I want to make is, right now we really need to be serving our audience. That's the thing. We don't want to be discounting our service. We don't want to be, lots of things. What we want to be doing is really serving our audience, and yet we can't really serve our audience if we don't really understand them. And so that's one of the reasons why we need to have a clear niche. When we have a clear niche, it means we understand our audience, and therefore we can produce products and services that we know our audience wants, rather than products and services that we think our audience will need. And there's a big difference there. One obvious point to state is that a niche provider can always charge more than a generalist. So if you needed to have knee surgery, you would go to a specialist knee surgeon. You wouldn't go to your GP. And which of those two is going to charge more money? Well, obviously the knee surgeon, because they're showing up in the world as a specialist, and you recognize that they have the skills to get rid of your pain in the quickest, easiest way. So a niche provider will always be able to charge more than a generalist provider. And when we obviously understand our niche, it means that we can clearly define who our ideal target customer is. And that means that we can understand the specific needs and challenges. Now, something I'm going to refer to a number of times through this presentation is the fact that when someone buys something from us, they are in pain and they want to get out of pain. And we are selling that transformation from pain to no pain. So if I'm going to a knee surgeon, I'm literally in pain. And the transformation is that I can start jogging again, where I couldn't when I had a dodgy knee. And so that's what they're buying. But it's true with your business, with my business, with anything. So if you think about a bottle of water, for example, when someone buys a bottle of water, the pain that they're in is that they're feeling dehydrated and they're thirsty. And the outcome they're looking for, to not be in pain, the gain, is to be hydrated and not thirsty. And that's what the transformation is. So that's what we're selling. So it doesn't matter whether it's coaching, whether it's knee surgery, whether it's a bottle of water, or whatever you do, we always need to think about this thing that our customers are in pain and we're going to help them get out of pain. When we have a clear niche, we can create truly differentiating, unique selling points. So anybody who tries to differentiate themselves from the competition by saying, we really care, or we act with integrity, or we go the extra mile, those are not USPs. Those are just also ran. Wouldn't everybody say that? And a really good test for you is to say to yourself, would everybody in my marketplace say this? And if the answer is yes, then it isn't a USP. It's just a waste of kind of marketing space, if you like. So if you say we behave with integrity, well, surely every business would. Whether they do or not kind of is irrelevant, because it's about the marketing messages that go out to your audience. So when we have a clear niche, we can truly create USPs that really genuinely make us look different to the competition. Obviously, that's a really key thing to be able to do right now. And as a consequence of that, as I said, we can create marketing messages and powerful content that really resonates with our audience. Now, your ultimate goal with any kind of marketing content that you produce is that your ideal target customer reads this marketing content, whether it be an email, whether it be a blog, whether they're listening to a podcast, whether they're looking at your website, whatever it is, whether it's your elevator pitch at a networking event. They want to hear or see or read that and go, blimey, this is exactly what's going on for me. Or they want to feel like, if it was an email, for example, they want to feel like that email has been personally written to you and isn't just kind of a generic broadcast. And you can't do that if you don't understand your niche. So if everybody agrees with the idea that we need to have a clear niche, then we need to start thinking about how we define that niche. Now, the thing I would say to you is that if you have a clear niche already, you need to double check that everything you do and say reflects that niche. Because I talk to people who say, yes, we've got a clear niche. We work with e-commerce businesses in the finance sector in the UK. That would be a really great niche. And then you go on their website and it doesn't say that, because they're sort of hedging their bets, or they're too nervous about committing to that niche. And that's a cardinal sin, really. So whatever your niche is, you need to make sure you've committed to it and you show up everywhere as a specialist in that niche. So if we want to define our niche, we need to identify the intersection of these three areas. So the intersection of where you earn the best money, where you get the best results, and where you most enjoy working. So it's the intersection of those three areas that identify your target niche. So the questions you want to ask yourself is, what part of my business is most profitable? What type of customer do I get the best results for? And what kind of work do we really enjoy doing? Because when we enjoy doing our work, obviously we're going to do a better job for our clients. And it's the intersection of those three areas that's going to give you your niche. So if you need to do some work on that, what I suggest you do is go back and look at your clients over the last year or so and do that analysis and just categorize them and see where that intersection is. For some businesses, it's very easy. So like for me, you know, I predominantly work with marketing agencies. That's my background. And so that working out that niche was fairly easy. For other businesses, it's a lot less clear. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, a lot of the time people think about niching in terms of the sector they work in, like financial services or retail, but actually you can cut your niche in four ways. So let's just spend a moment looking at how you can cut your niche. So the obvious ones really are by industry, which is what I just said, by sector, so finance, retail and so on. But it also can be by geography. So we serve companies in the UK. It can be by deliverable. We create really engaging websites for the e-commerce industry in the UK. That would be a good example of a clarity on those 3 points. And then the last one is the problem. So that's the pain that you're solving, that transformation. So we help clients generate more leads. We help clients get clear on their financial position. That's the problem that a client has. And I'm positioning myself by talking about the outcome that they're going to get, that transformation when they work with me. So just remember that when you are thinking about your niche, it can actually be cut in a number of ways, not just by sector, which is usually the obvious one that people start with. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about niching. Obviously, we could spend way more time than we have today talking about that, but I just wanted to kind of set that context of the importance of having a clear niche. And it all starts there, because if you don't have a clear niche, it becomes very, very difficult to identify who the audience is. And therefore you end up creating very generic messages and you struggle to get your message out to your audience because you don't know where they live. So that's why we need to start by having a clear niche. But the next thing I want to talk about is, if you want to run a profitable business, you need to be aligned across 4 areas. And those 4 areas are as follows. So market, service, market, product, service, and price. So what market are you serving? What's your product? And when I say product, I mean coaching or accounting or whatever. What's your service level like how responsive are you to your client base? And what's the fee that you charge? And we're going to fill this in, and I'm going to ask for some participation here. So if people can just be ready to write some comments in the chat. We're going to fill this in by just simply saying they're targeting the top end market by putting an up arrow in, or the horizontal line for the mid market, and the low end is the down arrow. And there's no judgment about this, but it's just, let's just use a couple of examples before I ask you to think about your own business. So if we are talking about airlines, let's start off with Ryanair and EasyJet. So what market would you say they're serving? Just put it in the chat. Would you say they're serving the top end market in the airline industry relative to their competition, the mid market, or the low end market? So just write whatever you think is in the, so Sandra said low, mid to low. Okay, great. So this, and to be quite honest, this was a lot easier to do a few years ago because it's changed a bit, but the answer, let's say, is low end. Certainly when we look at Ryanair, it would be the low end. And what's their product? So this would be the experience that you get from check-in to getting on the plane, the seat, the food, and all the rest of it. What would you say their product is? Mid, low, or high? Low, yep. Yes, thank you, Sandra. So yeah, the answer is low. And service level, so that's your experience of how you get treated by the staff when you're checking in, what the service experience is when you're phoning with a complaint or trying to book a ticket, all the rest of it. what's the answer for that one? Well, I think we're all going to agree that that's low. And then the price relative to their industry, that's the important point here. What would you say that is? Is it a high end? So we're comparing them to people like Etihad and Singapore Airlines, BA, and so on and so on. So the answer is low again. So now that means that these two airlines are aligned across those four areas. They get a big tick in the box, and it means that they are very profitable. And as I say, there's no judgment about this. They're just clear who they're serving, and they've made sure that their product and their price and their services is equitable to the market that they're serving. Let's do the same exercise quickly for BA. And I won't ask you guys to put stuff in the box because this gets a bit more confusing. But if we had time and everyone did put answers in, we'd get all sorts of answers. So if you're looking at BA, well, you could say that the market they're trying to serve is maybe the high-end market, but obviously they're trying to compete with Ryanairs and EasyJets a bit as well. So that's a bit confusing. The product definitely isn't a premium product anymore. You know, when compared to, like I say, Singapore and Etihad and Qatar and stuff, it's way not like that. The service level is really hit and miss. It could be all sorts of things. And the price, I would say, is probably mid to high. And as a result of that, BA gets a big cross in the box because they are not aligned and they are consequently nowhere near as profitable as Ryanair and EasyJet. You might be surprised to know. It's interesting that BA used to align themselves to the top end of the market, and they were the first airline to put a flatbed in business class. They were expensive. You never had to pay for your luggage or your seat or your food when you flew to Europe, which you do now. And in the process of trying to compete with the Ryanairs and the EasyJets of this world, they have lost market share and confused themselves. And we could do exactly the same exercise with supermarkets, because Tesco and Sainsbury's used to own that sector. Then Lidl and Aldi have come along, and obviously Lidl and Aldi predominantly have been targeting the low end market. Their product is pretty good, but the services, you know what you're going to get when you go into their queues at the checkout and all the rest of it, and their price is lower. So they're lined and they get a big tick in the box. But the likes of Marks and Spencer's and Waitrose have tried to fight some of that off by introducing their own brands. Waitrose, Marks introduced selling branded products like Cadbury's, where they never used to do that. And in the process of doing it, they've confused their own messaging as well. And whereas you'd never find, for example, Qatar Airlines, who I absolutely love, trying to compete in the low-end market. Similarly, you'd never find Harrods or Harvey Nicks trying to compete in the low-end market either, because they're very clear about who they're targeting. So just have a quick think. If we had time, we'd do this as an exercise, but have a quick think about your business. Where do you think you sit in the marketplace? You might want to just grab a piece of paper and share, write down where you think you are and see if you're aligned or not. And if you're aligned, then fantastic. But I'll share with you in a moment what I typically find with most businesses I talk to about this, what's going on for them and the net result of that. Okay, so hopefully you've just quickly thought about that. Like I say, we don't have a ton of time today to do that. But if anybody wants to share their alignment or has a question about this, do pop it into the chat and we will address it. I am keeping an eye on what people are typing. What I typically find is, so let's look at ABC Limited. I typically find that people, for example, are targeting the mid-market. Their product is a mid-market product. They go the extra mile to provide a brilliant level of service, so their service is high end. And to win business, they're discounting or they're trying to compete on price, so their price is low end. And you can imagine what a business like this looks like in terms of how profitable they are. So what it looks like is a company that is run ragged at the beck and call of their clients, but is frustrated that they're working super hard, but they're not making the revenue or the profits that they would think would be commensurate with the amount of work that they're doing. So as I said earlier, the decision about whether you're high, mid or low there's no judgment associated with that. You can be super successful in all of those different alignments. And of course, sometimes we are somewhere in the middle. You just need to make a decision. Like my business, I would say, is mid-market, 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 mid-market. So I I'm certainly not the cheapest coach on the market, but someone like Tony Robbins is going to charge you 50 grand to do a coaching session with him. And as much as I wish I could charge that, unfortunately I can't. So my alignment is mid-market, and I try to make sure that my service level is mid-market as well. So I have kind of like service level agreements with my clients where I say, I'll get back to, if you've got a question for me, I'll get back to you usually within about 6 hours. And sometimes I beat that, but I set that expectation so I can provide a good level of service, but a mid-market level of service. Because if we're in mid-market, the minute we start responding to clients immediately, we have set an expectation that that's what we will always do. And then when we can't maintain that level of service, the client is now disappointed, even though they're only paying for a mid-market service level. So I'd really encourage you to think about your alignment and think about the changes that you need to make in your business to become aligned. And and that's like another topic really that we could spend a lot of time on, but I just wanted to sow that seed with you today to make sure that you are aligned. Okay, so I now want to move on to talk about understanding your ideal client. So if we understand our niche and we understand our alignment, like where we want to sit in the marketplace, we now need to focus on understanding our ideal client. Yet you can't really speak your client's language, which is so important of what we need to do, if you don't really understand them. So, and also you can't work out what your product offering should be and what the right language to promote that should be to your ideal client, if you don't understand them. So you can't deliver value if you don't understand who they are. And as I said, your communications need to be able to speak the language of your clients. If we don't understand who they are, then you can't do this. So that you may well have heard of this concept of a client persona, a customer persona, or a customer avatar. I call it an ideal target customer. And there are things that you can do to define that. So I have a workbook that you can grab for free on my website, which is all about defining your customer personas. So let me just grab something off my wall. Just to show you this, it's a bit of a scribbled old piece of paper, but this is on my wall. It looks to me every day. This is my ideal target customer. These are real customers, past and present. And I have this on my wall all the time. So when I'm ever doing any kind of writing content or marketing, I'm talking to them rather than just like talking to anybody generically. So if you
Rob,
sorry.
There's just a comment from Sandra. I didn't know if you just wanted to pick up on that.
Oh yeah, sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
Sandra said, I'm a commercial illustrator and found illustration as a bit of a luxury product. Expectations were high price. Then I aligned my price with a stock image. This has not worked out as I attracted low-end clients. I'm now doing it on an hourly rate basis, which makes sense to my clients. My hourly rate is mid-level, not high. Then there's a good example of where so stock images, stock photos, or iStock, or all those people, they're really clear about who their target market is, and they would be down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow. So there's very little customer service, very little human interaction, and you buy your pictures and they don't cost you too much money. Yet if we want to compete in that space, we've got to set up a mechanism similar to that. So I think, Sandra, you've sort of identified an example where it's dangerous to try and step into that space, and that you're probably much better off creating bespoke images and illustrations for your clients. And as you say, you're charging a mid-level price for that, and you need to make sure that the service level you provide is a mid-level service level as well. So I think, I'm not sure if that was a question or just a comment, Sandra, but I think you've kind of highlighted really well that there are many markets in what we do that we could compete in, but that doesn't mean we should compete in them. So I could compete in, there's some online coaching platforms. I could try and compete in that. I could try and compete in the really expensive end of the market, but, it starts to put you into sort of unknown alien territory, and we never do our best work. When you think about the niche piece that I showed earlier, we can never do our best work when we don't really understand that. So maybe the lesson that you've learned, Sandra, from trying to step into that stock sort of illustration photo space is that actually I shouldn't do that, and I don't have the infrastructure in my business to be able to provide a low end service as I don't know, Etsy sites or stock photography sites or whatever can. So just let me know if that answers your question, Sandra, that if I missed it. So just carrying on with this, I'll keep an eye on the comments as well. If you speak your client's languages, their language, then the first thing is you can stand in their shoes and you can empathize with the issues and challenges that they have, and you can speak to these. Remember, clients are in pain. They want to get to some gain point, and there's a transformation between A and B, and we are selling a solution to the pain and that transformation to get them to this positive point. And if we talk about that pain and the starting position they're in, then they're going to have this moment where they go, yeah, that's exactly what's going on for me. This person seems interesting, tell me more. And when they think I want to learn more, that's when they click on the next link on your website, or that's when they respond to your email or leave a comment on your blog or reach out to you. So that's what we want to do, but we can't do that if we don't understand our clients. So it's so super important to understand the issues and challenges that they have, and we speak to those challenges, and we start off by empathizing with them to say, look, I understand exactly where you're at and how you feel. And when we do that, we can start to build credibility with our audience. And as you'll see when we look at the sales funnel, you can't make a sale until you've built empathy and built credibility with your customer. And of course, when we understand exactly who our ideal customer is, then we can start to create really compelling marketing messages. So I would really encourage you all to do a bit of work on your ideal target customer, your customer avatar. Most companies are going to have between 1 and maybe 3 customer avatars. You can't have many. Although I've got 6 images here, this is actually one avatar for me, and this is the small, growing, ambitious agency owner. That's who my target customer is. And I just have literal pictures of people to remind me, of the different types of people that I'm talking to. But I literally have that on my wall, and it's literally sitting in front of me, so that I'm never writing about things I care about or from my perspective, but I'm always writing stuff that I think will add value to that audience. Okay, so let's just now move on to talk about the sales funnel and have a kind of a recap for everybody. If you know what a sales funnel is, or if you don't know, it doesn't matter. Let's just quickly talk about what this is. So at the top of a sales funnel, we've got people coming into our world who are our ideal target customer, but they may have never heard of us before. So they're kind of like a cold contact, if you like. And then our job through our sales and marketing is to move them through this sales funnel to the point where they drop out the bottom as a customer. And then through our account development type work, we keep them as a loyal repeat customer, where we can retain them over the long period of time and also upsell additional services and products to them. So the journey that we need to take people on, and you may well have heard this before, super important, is that we need to get people to know us, get people to like us, get people to trust us, and only at that point will they buy from us. This is really, really important. And as I said earlier, the mistake that many people make is that they might be good at getting people, I don't know, to join their mailing list or to enter their well, to read their blog, listen to their podcast, whatever marketing things that you do are. And then they try and take those cold contacts and they try and sell to them. And of course, it doesn't work. So a lot of businesses are good at the top part and they're good at closing the deal, but what they're not good at is the middle part. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. And when we talk about know, like, trust, we have to do it with everything. So if we go back to my rather silly water analogy, if I was offering you a bottle of Evian water for £2 or a bottle of unbranded water for £1.80, which of those two would you buy? The Evian at £2 or the unbranded water at £1.80? You can drop a comment in the chats. Oops, I can't get to the chat for some reason. There we go. Most people would say they would pay the extra 20p to buy the Evian, and that's because Evian, through their marketing, has taken you through the know, like, trust journey through their advertising, through their sponsorships and all the other things that they do to build their brand. Whereas this unbranded bottle of water is unknown to you. You don't know it, so therefore you don't necessarily like it and you don't trust it. Is it truly spa? water or is it tap water, and is it healthy or not? You just don't know. So even a bottle of water needs to do this. Everything the same with a cup of coffee. If you could buy your favorite branded coffee or a much cheaper unbranded cup of coffee, you're almost always going to buy your favorite brand, and not because they're the cheapest, but because you know, like, and trust them, and you know you're going to get a consistent experience. So we have to take our customers through that journey. And that journey looks like building awareness at the top. So this will be all the things that you do, such as your website, such as your outreach on social media and social media posts, the networking that you do, building your email list and everything else. And then we need to build empathy with them. And then we build empathy by showing them that we understand the challenges that they have. And then we build credibility by starting to give them some value to overcome some of those challenges. So people need to, and this is kind of a bugbear of mine about a lot of websites, because websites are often the first point of contact. So they need to build empathy and credibility. Yet how many websites, that first bit at the top of the page say, you know, ABC is a web development agency and we produce beautiful websites. Well, that's just kind of very egotistical and isn't empathizing with your audience at all, and isn't showing your audience that you understand them and that you can add some value. Whereas if you said something like, we understand that financial services is very competitive and we will help build an amazing online presence that will get you noticed, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm just making this up. I'm sure you come up with much better headline than that. If that was the above the fold piece of this web developer's website, they're much more likely to get a financial services company coming on going, yeah, oh my God, that's exactly the problem. It's so competitive. No one's coming to our website. These guys sound like they understand me. Tell me more, let me read more, which means in the website context, they click on a button or scroll down the page. But a lot of the time, they'll never get above that top part of the website. They'll just see it, sounds like everybody else, and they'll just leave. And it's funny, really, that a lot of companies seem to think that there's comfort in being the same as everybody else. Whereas actually, you know, be brave and go in the opposite. If everyone's swimming in this direction, swim in that direction, and have a website that doesn't talk about you, but talks about your client. And then when they say, tell me more, then you can start talking about, you know, what you do. It's the old why, what, how, really. Why should I read this website? What is it you do and how do you do it? Like if you go on my website, which is not the, you know, the most amazing version of any website, but my website doesn't say I'm a coach until quite a long way through reading it, because it's kind of irrelevant that I'm a coach. What I need to show is that I can help my audience. Okay, so we need to build, so we build empathy, we build credibility. Now we build credibility by providing more value-added education-based marketing tools. So this is the more in-depth blog or the ebook or the top 10 tips or a tool that you're giving away for free. And you shouldn't be afraid of giving value away for free, because people will come and buy from you because you can provide everything they need and you can take them on that transformation they're looking for. Everything is available on the internet somewhere. If someone could be bothered to spend hours and hours and hours trawling through good content and bad content and terrible content and good content, they'd find what they need. But rarely is that a reason why someone wouldn't buy from you. They buy from you because you make it easy for them to access that information. So you should never be afraid of giving really good value away for free. And then you build trust, and you build trust by having testimonials and case studies, and you build trust by obviously talking to someone and showing that you are a great listener, you're good at building empathy, and so on. So you need to make sure that you are doing this middle piece really well, and that's that education-based marketing, because that is what's going to help people build the like and trust with you, and that then enables you to start selling to them. Now, one of the common mistakes I see a lot of business making, partly because they don't do the middle bit very well, is that they get someone into their world, they maybe offer a meeting to that person, or that person reaches out and say, can I have a chat with you? And you arrange a meeting, well, obviously probably a socially distanced meeting right now, and then you go to that meeting. But the problem with that is that our most valuable asset is our time, and it's the most precious thing that we have. And if we are spending a lot of time going to unqualified meetings, then we are kind of throwing money down the drain. And I call this cups of coffee meetings. I know you'll have all been there and you'll relate to this because I certainly have, where you agree to go to a meeting, you spend half an hour or an hour giving really good consultative advice to that person in the meeting, and then the meeting comes to an end and maybe it feels a bit awkward. So the other person says, oh yeah, could you just write me a proposal for that? So you go away and you write the proposal, you send it off, and then you never hear from them again. Or you chase them up and you can't get hold of them. And then finally you get hold of them and they say to you, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, we decided to take a different direction. And that is because I think partly in these type of meetings, it makes the other party feel much more at ease if they, and less awkward, if they end the meeting by asking you to write a proposal with no thought about how long it's going to take you to do it. Because it's much easier for them to say that than it would be to say, look, actually, I don't think this is really for us, and have that awkward conversation. So they ask you to write a proposal. And the problem about that is you have not qualified them well enough. So a really important point to make is that your time should be the inverse of the sales funnel. So here we've got the sales funnel again, cold leads going in the top, prospects in the middle, and customers dropping out the bottom. And your time should be the absolute opposite of that. So at the top of the sales funnel, you should be spending no time. Okay, you might be at a networking event that gets a few people into your sales funnel, but through all the other things that you do, you should be investing no time in it. Then as they become a warm prospect, you can invest some time. And then when they drop out as a customer, obviously you're going to invest lots of time in them. So you need to make sure that you are placing your limited time in the right spaces and that you have qualified your prospects well enough before you agree to start talking to them. And I haven't got time to go into the how to do that, but what I will say is that I talk to my clients about having 5 non-negotiable questions that they need to ask, and they will not agree to a meeting until these 5 questions have been asked. Now, of course, it might be 4 questions, 6 questions, but the concept of 5 non-negotiable questions is really important. And those questions will be different for different businesses, but fundamentally they'll include things like, what's your budget, what's your timescale, who's the decision maker, what have you done before? And one question that we should all ask is, why is now a good time for you to be looking at buying my service? Everyone should always ask that. It should be one of your questions. Why is now a good time? And I always ask this question, and it is just really insightful because it will tell you whether someone genuinely has that pain and they are telling you about that pain, or whether they're just in fact find mode looking around to see what's on the market and not really sure. So listen to the response and then make a decision whether you do it. Now, I had an example of this on Friday. I had someone book a call with me, because you can actually book a call on my website. And they booked a call with me, and they have to answer the questions when they are booking the call in Calendly. And what I read didn't make any sense to me. It looked to me like they needed a life coach, not a business coach. And so I wrote back to them cancelling the meeting and saying, I don't think I'm a good fit for you. And I gave them the name of a few people they could talk to. So you have to be strict to not go on these meetings. Now, I appreciate at the moment we're not probably inundated with tons of meetings, but that doesn't mean you should fill up your calendar with less than qualified meetings. It means you should use the time that you have freed up at the moment to really work on your honing your message, your niche, your sales and marketing, and so on, not by going on meetings that are, your gut instinct probably tells you aren't a good fit, probably a bit of a waste of time, but I'll do it anyway because I'm not that busy. That is really the wrong mentality. So just make sure that your time is inversely proportional to where the lead prospect or hot prospect is in the sales funnel. Okay, so now we understand hopefully the concept of a sales funnel. I just want to talk to you in the last part of this presentation about your sales and marketing tactics. And at a broadest level, this is how we need to look at this. So you will have a number of skills that you're really good at. You will have a number of marketing activities that you like doing. You might be a good writer. You might prefer to shoot videos. You might like doing a podcast. You might be fantastic on social media, whatever it is. You will have a bunch of tactics that you are really good at, that you prefer doing. And then you need to look at your ideal target customer and look at the channels that they prefer, which of course, because you've done the work on your niche and your customer avatar, you now understand, and you hopefully have spoken to some of your ideal target customers to understand the best way they consume information. And obviously the overlap between those two areas is your sweet spot. Now, I would suggest that you do a few things really well rather than lots of things badly. We are inundated with noise telling us about this latest new social media channel, this latest new fad, this latest new thing. But we need to do a few things really well. That's the best piece of advice I can do, because you will not get results from your sales and marketing activities just like that. If you need a short-term fix, your best bet is to go back to old, current and past clients and try and reignite them. It isn't to do a bit of marketing and hope that will generate tons of leads for you. It won't. You need to be really consistent with this. So do a few things well, recognize that it takes 3 to 6 months to start to see some kind of return on investment. But the one thing everybody should do, and I just want to spend a few moments talking about this, the most important slide I'm going to share with you today is the fact that you should all be building your mailing list. And a message I'm going to say twice here is that the success of your business is directly tied to the strength of your email list. So the success of your business is directly tied to the strength, the quality and the size of your email list. And I know that's a pretty big statement to make. So let's just explore why that is true. So first of all, research tells us that for every pound that you spend on putting a quality contact into your mailing list, you're going to get £40 worth of revenue return on investment from that. So that means if you've got 100 names in your list that are quality names, you're going to get £4,000 of business from it in the next year, and extrapolate that up. Now, a really important point about this to think about is that you own your mailing list. You do not own your social media followers. And this, again, a really important point to make. And I want to tell you a story that a client of mine told me last week. And that is that one of their customers, who is a mortgage broker, I think, has 10,000 followers on Instagram. And that's where they got the majority of their business from, because this is a really active audience. They were really good at posting on there, and they used that as their main business development channel. And then their Instagram account got hacked. So they changed their password and they alerted Instagram, and Instagram deleted their account. And apparently in Instagram's terms and conditions, it says if your account gets hacked, we reserve the right to delete your account. So Instagram said, really sorry, deleted your account, please create a new account. So overnight, this core channel of business development went from 10,000 to 0. And that's because you don't own your social media lists, your groups, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're active, Twitter. You don't own that, you're renting it. Whereas if you can move people from those lists to your mailing list, then you own that list. And of course, yes, people can unsubscribe from your list, and you need to make that legally as part of their ability. But if you're providing really good value-added content, then people won't be unsubscribing, and you own that list and you can communicate it. And another thing to think about is that when you are communicating to your list, it's a one-to-one communication. When I'm communicating to my social media audience, it's a many-to-one, because I'm fighting for your attention, but so is 100 other people that you're connected with as well. So my whole strategy is to use social media to drive traffic to my website, and when they get to my website, to get them to download something so they join my mailing list. And that should be something that you are doing as well. Now, if you get people on your list, if you want to keep them warm, you need to make sure that you are communicating with them regularly and not sending, an email once every 2 or 3 months, because they will forget you. And I'll come on to that in a moment. And the key, sorry.
Just a question from Sandra about mailing list and GDPR issue, how to keep contact safe.
Yes. So a couple of things about that, and I'm no GDPR expert, but first of all, if you're working in a B2B space and you are providing what you consider value-added content to that audience, you won't be in breach of GDPR. Second of all, a lot of email automation systems, which you should be using for this, will enable you to put a GDPR compliance box where someone has to tick the box to give their permission. If you're working in a B2C space, you definitely need to get their permission. If you're working in a B2B, as far as I understand it, you don't need to, as long as you're not spamming them, and as long as you give them a way to unsubscribe which all email automation systems like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit and many others, MailerLite, that you can use, all enable people to manage their own subscriptions. So as long as you have the ability for someone to unsubscribe, and when you are getting someone to join your list in the first place, you can put a GDPR compliance tick box in there if you want to. So I hope that answers your question. What I was going to say is, when you're sending content to people, the really magic balance here is that 80% of the content you put out there should be adding value, should be helping people with that transformation from being in pain to not being in pain, and 20% should be selling. And let's just explore that quickly. The 80% bit is obvious. But if you spend 100% of your time selling, then people are going to get fed up and unsubscribe. That's obvious one. But on the other hand, if you spend 100% of your time just adding value, people will love receiving your content, but they will never view you as someone they can buy from. They'll just view you as a fantastic resource. So you need to get the balance right. Now, how I do it in my emails is my email content is almost always about adding some value, and it's about one topic, adding value. And I have a PS at the end of my emails which says, PS, here are 4 other ways I can support you. And it would say things like, go grab some resources, have private coaching with me, join my mastermind group, and so on. So that's where I do my selling most of the time. So just be mindful of that. I'm conscious of time, so we're nearly there, but I just want to have some time at the end for any other questions. So 80% add value, 20% time. And you should be mailing regularly, so at least once a fortnight, if not once a week, which is, I mail once a week to my audience. And if you're thinking, yeah, that's great, but where am I going to get ideas from, then you need to produce a content calendar. And one thing I do is, when I'm talking to my clients, I get all my ideas for my emails from that. And I've just got a note on my phone where I capture all the ideas for emails. And of course, if I'm discussing something that's going on with my client, then in a generic way, without obviously breaking any confidentiality, that issue will be going on for other people as well. So my clients always give me my content, and I never get to the point where I need to write an email and think, what should I write about? And I do a weekly podcast as well, and it's the same with that. I never getting to record a podcast thinking, oh, I don't know what to write about, because I'm always trying to work forward on that. So get ideas from talking to your clients, make a note of them, and then create a schedule and stick to it. Now, the reason why I said you should be sending regular emails is because, where every time you engage with your target audience, whether that be by email, by meeting them, by them commenting on a post in social media, whatever it is, you've refilled the sand timer, and now the sand timer is running out. And if you don't re-engage with your audience before the sand timer's run out, they will forget about you. And then you'll bump into them a few weeks later and they'll say, oh, damn, I just bought XYZ service. I should have thought of you, but I forgot. So your job is to keep the sand timer refilled before it runs out. And that's why regular communications is so important. Now, another really important point I want to make here is that clients are ready to buy when they're in enough pain and they know that your product or service can solve that pain. And clients are ready to buy when they're ready, not when you want them to. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make. People think, I need some clients, I'll try and do some sales now. But if you're targeting an audience of, say, 1,000 people, then maybe right now, one of those 1,000 is in enough pain that they're ready to buy from you. So you've got to keep nurturing the rest of the audience so that you're in front of them when the next person in that 1,000 is ready to buy. And yes, so tying all this together really emphasizes the importance of your list and the importance of regular communications. And remember that it's 80% adding value, 20% selling. And I like to think of it this way: when you've got people in your list working through that funnel, they're in one of 3 stages. So the first stage is, I want to join your community because it seems like you're knowledgeable and I could learn from you, and that's great. The second stage for them is, I'm in your community, I've learned enough from you that I know I'm going to buy from you one day, but I'm not ready right now. And then stage 3 is, I'm in your community and I'm ready to buy. And you need to make sure that you are obviously with them at every single stage of that journey. So, okay, so now you might agree with the idea of a mailing list. You might be saying, well, how do I get people to sign up to my list? So my view, as I said already, is that your website should be at the center of your business universe. You drive traffic to the website from all sorts of different sources, like your social media, and so on. And then when they get to your website, at the top of the page, you're offering them something in return for their email. So the transaction is simply, I will give you some exclusive value-added content, and in return, you will pay for it with your email address. Now, if you think, well, I've got that already on my website and it's not working, if you've got a button that says sign up for my newsletter or join my mailing list, then without being a mind reader, I can almost guarantee that those won't work very well from you, because where is the value in that? If I filled in a thing that said join my mailing list, I'm probably going to think I'm just going to get spammed. And if and as far as a newsletter goes, I probably think I'm on so many newsletters already that I haven't got time to read all the various bits of content. So I'm a big fan of single messages in my emails, for example, rather than sending out newsletters, but that's a different topic. So what you need to have is an email box where someone puts their emails in, that's gated content that gives them access to something that is value added. And it's something that's very specific, not join my newsletter, because people, just won't do that. So I have lots of gated content on my website. So like how to define your ideal target customer is an ebook, how to define your niche is an ebook. I also just published a book, and this is the real key lead magnet for me, if you've heard that term, lead generator for me. So if you go on the homepage of my website, you can grab a copy of this book that normally sells for $5.99 on Amazon. And it's a book that talks about my journey of running a business and selling a business, and the 3 core areas I think that you need to focus on to build your business, of which today is one of those areas. So that's an example for me of gated content. Okay, so in summary, we've talked today about why having a clear niche will help you win more business and help you identify exactly who your ideal target customer is. We talked about the importance of alignment across those 4 areas of market, product, price, and service. And we talked about the importance of identifying your ideal target customer, so you identify the pains that they're in, the gains they're looking for in that transformation. Then I talked about the concept of the sales funnel and how we need to take people through that know, like, and trust journey. And then we talked about some sales tactics and the importance of building your mailing list and how you can convert leads through those 3 stages of being in your world to the point where people are putting their hands up and saying, hey, I'm ready to buy, because that is going to be by far your best prospect, as opposed to people that you're reaching out to saying, do you want to buy from me? Do you want to buy from me? And they're not necessarily ready. So you're in danger of wasting lots of time. Okay, I've flown through that because I appreciate we've only got 5 minutes left. If anybody's got any questions, then please do pop them into the chat right now. And if you want to see an experience of what a lead magnet looks like, and also see the email sequence that you would go through, then you can go to this URL I'm not sure how I can put it in chat, but I can put the links in.
We can send it after.
Okay, so yeah. There's the link. Anyway, you can see it now. So download that. The book's great. It genuinely sells for that price, and it will give you an experience of what a lead magnet looks like and what an email sequence looks like. And you can try and sort of unpick that email sequence to see how you can make it work for your business. So are there any questions?
While people are thinking of any questions, I'll just say thank you very much, Rob, for another informative session. And I hope that everyone's kind of taken something away from today. I think the main point that stood out to me is really about the empathy and credibility, and how key that they are to kind of any business's success. And those 2 elements can help kind of you create some very clear and direct marketing messages to your ideal audience.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's always remembering that kind of every marketing task that you kind of take on daily, monthly, weekly, however often you do them. I did have one question with the communication regularity, and whether you can communicate with your audience too much. Is that ever a thing?
It's interesting because, some marketers would tell you that you should be emailing your audience like 3 times a week. So I think yes, but I think the key thing is um, that you're adding value, because if you are adding value and people genuinely look forward to receiving your communication, then you won't get into that situation. But I think weekly, fortnightly at a very minimum is enough to keep the sound timer filled. I email every Tuesday. If you're on my list, you'll have got, I think Vicky's on my list, so you know, you get my emails. You would have got an email this morning that's set up. And yeah, so weekly is good for me, but I know some people would struggle with that. So, you know, fortnightly is good. I probably would say you can. I wouldn't email 3 times a week for 2 reasons. One, because I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And two, because I think I might upset some of my audience. However, I am posting daily on social media. I am doing a weekly podcast as well as my email. So I am communicating with my audience in a number of ways, which could look like more than once a week. So I think the answer really is to make sure you add value and to think about what works for you in the context of your workload, because, you know, we've all got several things we have to do. We might if we're running our own business, we've got to deliver the client work, we've got to run our business, and we've got to get business for the future. So your marketing and sales looks like getting business for the future. So, you know, if you were trying to email 3 times a week with a significant piece of content, then, you know, you would really struggle with that. And the one thing I just wanted to say to your first point, Vicky, about building empathy and credibility, it shows why people who send generic connection requests on LinkedIn, and then you accept that request, and the next minute they send you a message that's trying to sell something, it just tells you why that totally doesn't work. Because they have tried to go from, you don't know who I am, to, do you want to buy from me? They've tried to skip the whole empathy credibility piece.
And
so first of all,
that happens quite a lot.
It does, every single day. And I tell you what, I never ever accept a generic connection request, because you can't be bothered to write a personalized message to me when we're connecting. Then, you know, you haven't taken the time. And it's funny because I run a podcast and I get lots of people on LinkedIn trying to say, can I be on your podcast, or can I put my client on your podcast? I get a lot of PR agencies, and I always go back to them and say, tell me which episode you enjoyed listening to, because you know damn well they haven't listened to anything, because they're not taking, even in that engagement piece, they still need to do this credibility. It'd be much better to say, hey Rob, I listened to your podcast on blah blah blah, I found it really useful, there was one aspect you didn't talk about that my client would be great to talk about. Now my ears would prick up if they took the time to do that. So even things like LinkedIn, you have to take people through that know, like, trust journey. So you'd be better off connecting with someone on LinkedIn with a personalized message, sending them some useful content, or highlighting them some posts that you've put on there, doing that for a while before you ever try to start selling to them, because they've got to know, like, and trust you before they're going to buy from you.
Great. There's just a comment from Sandra, just a really useful tip about the 5 non-negotiable questions.
Yeah.
I imagine Sandra's probably going to be working on that later today.
Yeah, it's and like I said, it's different questions for different people, but just use the one, why is now a good time, is just a brilliant question. So, and there's some other things that you can do to kind of qualify people before you meet them that doesn't involve your time, but we just didn't really have time to talk about that. But I'm glad the 5 non-negotiable questions helped. Sometimes you just need to be brave and push back on people and kind of go, you know, can you just answer this? And if you're using things like automated appointment, like Calendly, you can put those questions into Calendly, so when someone's trying to set that appointment, they have to answer those questions.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you, Rob. I don't think there's any other questions at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll send, obviously, a link to your self-running agency book in the follow-up email. And if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask you, then obviously your contact details will be as well. So
do, and you know, please do reach out if you've got any questions about anything we've talked about today. I can actually send you a PDF of the presentation as well, Vicky, and then you can send that out as well.
Lovely.
If you want to.
Okay, right. That's great. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a good rest of your Tuesday, and speak and see you all virtually soon.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye.